I turn to God's will in the world, and I've picked a passage from Father's speech called, I get it? The name of the speech is Let Us Know Ourselves. Yeah, it was given in Tarrytown in 30th September 1979 in New York. Okay, so I'm going to read a number of paragraphs under the title Leading the Way. So let's pay attention, and then maybe we'll have a little discussion afterwards, and then we'll share testimonies. Okay? Leading the way. What technique do I use to inspire you? Am I a hypocrite or a magician? There is no magic here, only universal law at work. All I have to do is teach this law. Sometimes I seem very cruel when I ask you to go out and work for the universal cause. But it is for the sake of good. Or is it for the sake of good or evil? It is for goodness, so big that it is the size of God. I don't have any assets of my own except this universal law. Furthermore, I aspire to work harder and suffer more than anyone else for this cause. God knows very well what principle I am living under. If Satan complains to God that I have been permitted to acquire too much success and prosperity, and he wants me to demonstrate what I have done to deserve it, would God hesitate to let Satan test me? It is because Satan is trying to deter me that I faced incredible persecution and torture in communist prison camps. But did I change even when I had to go through all that? Is it true that the entire world has persecuted me? Has America welcomed me with the red carpet treatment? Do many heads of state want to welcome me to their countries? Christians and Jews are supposed to be our friends, but are they? Do the communists call me their friend? I think that in all of history, there has never been one individual who was persecuted by the whole world, or who has suffered more opposition than I have. Have I crumbled into many pieces because of this opposition, or am I getting stronger than ever? Even people outside the unification movement must come to the conclusion that I am not lukewarm or mediocre. Either I am really evil or really good. I am Oriental, but even white people are telling me I am good. Is it a puzzle to the world that they can figure it out? Do you really believe I'm good? That is why people think I have brainwashed you. It is too incredible for them to believe. Is that what I did? All you have done is link yourself up to the universal principle. But even you yourselves don't realize when you changed. You used to be just like people in the secular world, but you followed this way of life. But as you followed this way of life, you covered a great distance and changed a great deal. These days, faith has its pride. The Pope is visiting many nations, and millions of people gather to see him. Are there cheers for the Catholic Church or for the salvation of the world? If that sound is for the sake of the Catholic Church, it is not good enough. But if that gathering is intended to help God and man together to save mankind, then it is good. If they gather to strengthen their resolve to sacrifice themselves more for the public good, then such gatherings are good. Is the unification movement a good group of people? What is good about us? We don't gather for the sake of the unification movement, but for the liberation of God and mankind. What we do is for the supreme good. If we only gather to receive God's blessing and privilege, then we are not good people. We gather to give ourselves for the liberation of mankind and God. So, we are a God-centered movement. In that case, the leader who founded it must be good as well. The more ardently we pursue the goal, the more success and prosperity is bound to come. My philosophy and ideal is to live for the liberation of God, in addition to that of mankind and the spirit world. No one ever spoke of that goal before. Are these empty words, or am I really doing it? There is no night or day for me because I'm always working for that goal. Were you lucky or unfortunate to meet me? Indeed, I am resolute, ambitious for God, and greedy to do his will. But I am applying all these characteristics for making each of you a God-centered leader. That means I will push you into hardship and difficulty with an iron will to push you to be a winner and not be defeated. Even if someone threatens to poke your eyes out, unless you renounce this movement, you can reply, even if you destroy my eyes, I will not change. They are sacrificial for the sake of goodness. After you feel this way, you can say, ouch. Then God will receive that pain as well. When you are ridiculed and mistreated, you naturally feel pain. But if you are serving the absolute goal of the liberation of God, then everything that you bear shall be borne by God as well. Your own death will be felt by God, and he will acknowledge that you have died for him and for mankind. Then God and humankind will bow down to you because you made your sacrifice on the most divine altar. So I chose that reading last night because I was reading a few speeches and I really felt, I felt very inspired by this. I personally have been very lucky in my life because I met Father personally many, many times, particularly at the seminary. When I was at the UTS, Father came I was there maybe 10, 12 times. I could listen to Father, and even I was in the booth one time, the security booths, and Father even greeted me one time. So I felt always good when Father came to the seminary. And I felt he came to, just to give us some extra guidance because we were studying all the things he wanted us to study, theology, world's religions, world scripture, Old Testament and all these things. But also we could get from Father more kind of spiritual guidance on our lives. Okay, does anyone want to make any comment about this reading? Does anything come to you as I've read this? Thank you, David. I think Father's speeches, even this was 1979, that's the year officially I joined the church, although I met the church the year earlier. I think Father's words are eternal. Don't you agree? Even true today. And what he's told us in 1979 is really, really true for us members, as you're saying. Even today, we're going through hardships. Maybe we don't receive the same kind of persecution, maybe as Father did, but still, we still have a banner, the unification banner, that Father has given us. So we can receive some kind of persecution and so on, but it's not the same. Yeah. Yes, Anne?
I think about him, and he thinks of me as well. I'm sure about it, or very often anyway, very often. So we have to get that relationship with God. Mm. If we don't get that relationship with God, if we think, that's, as I hear one second generation a few months ago now saying, first generation, they always think about God, but we cannot do that. I think it's not understanding which make talking like that, because we all have to build this relationship with God father and mother have this relationship with God every minute of the day. Soon as they say something or do something, they think, what God wants, what is God wants, what God wants. That's their thought, and we have to have the same thought. It's not, it doesn't happen overnight, but we have to train ourselves to that. But if we maintain the thoughts that we are okay, we can live the way we are, we cannot think about God all the time, then we will never progress. That's what, there is a passage in what you read today which showed very much about this relationship with God. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Actually, that really links with what True Mother is doing, because in her speech, True Mother said to the Taiwanese people that unless they know God, Taiwan can never become a heavenly nation. So actually, in the world today, you're right. This is exactly what True Mother is saying. Unless we connect to God and know God and live with God, we can never change. There will always be. There'll never be a heavenly family, heavenly world or heavenly country. There'll always be problems and so on. And in other words, the kingdom of heaven can only come if we are God's children. We know God, and we are all God's children, and we are siblings of God's family. Yeah. So that's very much in line with what True Mother is doing on this world tour. Actually, yes. Anybody else wants to share something? Yes. Patrick.
This year for me basically is, a very challenging year, and to reflect on what happened the last 11 months, I feel that we as a movement, we're going through difficulties, especially first, second generation, third generation. We're all struggling in certain ways. And sometimes the reason why is because maybe we're not understanding what is the fundamental principles, how we should live a principle way of life. And goes back to the basic concept, how we should live our way of life. And our father was saying there in that speech that he doesn't come up with a new theory of how to live, but he was following the universal principle in his life. And by doing so, then basically, if you follow that basic principles in life, then you're guaranteed to be prosper. Yes, and so we can look at various things in our life and think, well, why am I not achieving certain things, and why am I failing in certain ways, in individual goals, in my family goals, in my community goals, whatever I have. And I'm thinking, why am I failing? Why am I not progressing? And what came to mind was, am I living according to these universal principles in my life? And if you're not, then of course you're going to end up failing. Yeah. There's many laws out there. If you think you're going to fail, you're going to fail. Yeah. If you follow a law to make you fail, then you're going to end up as a failure. So this year, I had to sort of go back to basics and studying the principle, and every day, scrutinizing every part of the principle and seeing how am I living according to this? How am I living according to the principles? And why am I not progressing? And seeing where am I at the moment? And sometimes you get challenges, individual and family levels, and you realize that these challenges is because you're not complying to what the universal principle says you should be. and sometimes it's difficult. And you know, as many times I ask God, you know, why is this happening to me? You know, why it's not happening to somebody else? And God would say, well, you know, I can't do anything about it if you're not living according to these principles. Yeah, these are my universal laws. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're not living according to these standards, then you're going to be judged. You know, either myself will judge you, or Satan will judge you. You know, so this is what I realize this year so far.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Actually, before asking anybody else, please think anybody else wants to share. But I said in the beginning that I wanted to share one thing with you. It actually is very much in line with what Patrick has just said. So maybe it's the right time for me to share a little testimony from last Sunday. I won't take too long, but I'm going to give you just a little background. 28 years ago, in 2001? No, 1999, sorry, 1991. 28 years ago, my younger brother passed away. He was actually a young doctor. He was 32 years old. He had a special virus that went into his heart. He went into hospital on Friday night, and he never came back home. He died in the hospital, which was a big shock for all our family. He was my youngest brother. Anyway, but why I tell you that is that and then what happened, my brother, his wife and family decided to cremate his body. So they had the ashes, and whilst we will, not everybody agrees with cremation and so on, but we accepted that was the in-law, my sister-in-law's decision, you know. So we accepted that. But the thing is, my family, particularly my brother and to some extent my mother, for 28 years, they have never forgiven my sister-in-law for not sharing the ashes with our family. With the other side, my brother's side, that's my family. So we could never, in the words of my brother, we could never pay respect. If you got a burial, you can go on his anniversary that he's passing away. You can say a prayer. You can think of him. We do that for my dad, who passed away actually 19 years ago. We do that every year. We go to the cemetery. We say a prayer, then we go have a meal together. But we could never do that for my brother. It wasn't a big problem for me or my sister Joyce, who's in the church, but it was more a problem of the family outside the church, particularly my brother, elder brother, and my mother. So for 28 years, there's been almost like this, like a resentment, against my sister-in-law, and I have to say her 3 lovely sons, my nephews. But recently, my younger sister went to one of the brothers' weddings only because my mother couldn't travel on her own. One of the consequences of not keeping in touch, or this resentment or bad feeling, is that we didn't keep in touch, which is such a shame. We didn't keep in touch so much, except for sending Christmas cards. We didn't really, especially my brother died with 3 very young children, with a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-month baby. And it took 28 years for me and my sister Joyce to organize an event last Sunday to invite my brother's family to come and to talk and to bring my brother's ashes. We did not understand their side. We were looking from our point of view that their mother refused to give it to us and blah blah blah, but we never understood their point of view. The 3 sons, my 3 nephews. They felt we didn't care for 28 years. They felt that's why they didn't. They were particularly resentful to my brother because he would often say things like, why we haven't got it, blah blah blah, So they were especially resentful to him. But we didn't keep in touch. And one of the first things I did was to apologize publicly. I'm really sorry. After your dad passed away, we didn't keep in touch. We should have been more caring. We should have taken care of the 3 of you. We should have visited more. So very tearfully, I apologized. And my sister did as well. And then we listened to my my son's eldest son, who's also same name as my brother Robert, Robert Jr., and he said, the reason we didn't give you the ashes, and nobody knew this until today, until that day, was that we missed our dad, and the ashes was the only way we could connect to him. That's why we didn't pass it on. But no one asked us in 28 years why we were keeping the ashes. We just had bad feelings, you know. So anyway, cut a long story short, we cried and we repented and so on. And anyway, so my nephew presented the ashes to my mother. So the ashes have come to our family. But at the same time, we truly embraced my brother's sons. They're lovely. And even the wife of the eldest son and his two lovely children, you know, they're so beautiful people. And we missed all that for 28 years. We missed getting to know our family. So anyway, so through this reconciliation, we've now become one family. And we're now keeping in touch. Every few days we're in touch. And you know, and when in the springtime, hopefully we will scatter my brother's ashes at my dad's burial, and then we'll invite all his family to come, and that'll be the complete restoration. That my brother didn't attend that meeting, by the way. We didn't push him to attend. It was more for me and Joyce. We organized it at my mother's house, but my brother will be there, and he's accepted that we'll invite all our nephews and our sister-in-law to come when we scatter the ashes. So we'll be a complete unified family. So anyway, so just to conclude, this was a very historical event for my family, because we know, you know, the universal law, and we know that we should not take resentment and bad feeling to the spirit world. And if my brother dies, he's much older than me and my sister Joy. If he passes away, he'll be taking that to the spirit world. And we don't want him to take that resentment. There's got to be love and caring in our family. So that's why we organized the ceremony, and that's why it happened. And we will continue after that. Okay, so I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. Our family went through something this year that was, for me, very intense and unusual. My oldest son, Ilsung, started to get a range of strange things in his body that we couldn't explain. He had all these symptoms. He was getting face pains, headaches. His muscles wouldn't work possibly very well. He'd stumble sometimes. And like a lot of young people, he went on Dr. Google. I hate Dr. Google with an absolute passion, I'm telling you. And what came up for him as a diagnosis was motor neurone disease. And so he began to research this. And he suddenly realized that maybe he's not going to live long enough to see his son grow up. And he came into my house so many times, put his head on the dining table, and was crying, crying, crying. And I cried with him. And this became very heavy, very intense, something we went through together. I couldn't talk about it with anyone. And I even wondered what the hell was going on. And then he went to see a neurologist who said, I don't think you've got motor neurone disease. It's nothing. It's all in your mind. And he knew it wasn't, because he suffers the symptoms, not someone else. And then he went back on Dr. Google. He found something else, and it wasn't that. And again, he said, I don't know what's going on with me. He came round one day and said, I'd rather be dead than go through this, even if I don't see my son. And at that point, I had already started, of course, praying to God. At that point, I thought, I can't go through this anymore. Am I fit to be your mother? I can't cure you. And you know, when you have a son who is suffering, you suffer along with them so much. And when you can't cure them, It's really painful because you love them with a passion. You gave birth to them. Well, finally, he really persevered with Dr. Google, and I'm glad he did because he found something that fit all his symptoms. And he decided he would pay money to go and see a specialist for something called Lyme disease. You get it when you're bitten by a tick. It's very prevalent in America and in Africa, and it's become now quite prevalent in England. All his symptoms fit. He went onto a forum of people who have Lyme disease, and he booked himself a £300 appointment with a specialist. Sounds like a lot of money, but anyway, he went, he had the interview, he had an examination, and basically the doctor said, if it looks like Lyme disease, it smells like Lyme disease, it is. Here's the medicine. And finally, he has hope. He knows he's not going to die. He knows that after 2 or 3 years, he will feel better. This takes a long time to go from the body. What I had through all this was the lovely feeling of being grateful to God that He gave me the strength to go through this and not give up. And being really grateful to God for my physical body, which actually works so well. I can walk up and down stairs, I can do so many things. And I thought, my God, I have such a lot to be grateful for. And also this feeling that I wouldn't give up on him, even though sometimes you go to a really dark corner. And, you know, I got to the point where I was sitting in my bedroom in the corner crying, saying, I can't do this anymore. And God's voice said, you have to, you're his mother. You are the one person who can't give up. So somehow I didn't. And I'm really grateful because I feel through this, God gave me a challenge. He gave me a hardship, and he really pushed me in a certain direction. And I'm also really grateful because finally he got a diagnosis. And mentally he's now in a really good place because he knows he will get better. And he knew this, you know, he kept going to a GP who said, it's stress, get over it. And said, okay, I give you some counselling. Do you want some free counselling? It's all in your head. Well, it wasn't. And I knew it wasn't because I know I gave birth to my son 33 years ago. So of course I knew this is not normally his character, and he was getting so desperate. But I'm grateful. He has the kind of character that doesn't give up. He knew there was something going on. He wanted to know what it was. And I just have a massive thank you to God that finally we found out what it was, and it can have an end. And he will see his son grow up. That was the one thing that really tore him in half, that he felt his son wasn't going to see him after 2 or 3 years. When you become a parent, that's quite massive. And I just want to say a big thank you to God and to parents for getting me through this. Thank you.
I guess the upside to what Naomi's saying, the upside to challenges and hardships is that we can grow, and also we can, when we have a grateful heart, we can learn things from it and become better people. And, you know, and also we can think about True Father, what he's been through in his life. Okay, anybody else wants to share a testimony?
Okay, so I was thinking, sort of we're talking something reflective today, reflecting about the year, and I thought, okay, what better way to share a testimony than to share some inspirations that I wrote down throughout the past year. So bit of a backstory. So since, I don't know, about 2014, around then, since I got basically a phone, I've always kept notes on my phone. Every message, every sermon, everything, hundoke, any inspiration that I enjoy gets put down in here. I've gone through different phones, so I've lost quite a few documents, but it happens. And so I thought, why not share some of the notes that I wrote throughout the year. Some of them will probably be reminders of previous messages or sermons people have given here. So there's one from True Father's early years motto. Before desiring to dominate the universe, first you must achieve dominion over yourself. There's a quote from Chambu Mogyong. You should see people as more valuable than yourself. Submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. So that was a Bible quote. I believe I found that in the movie War Room. So if you know that movie, it's a really good one. Here's something I found interesting. If you want to know why it's hard to make money doing the righteous thing, it's because all things no longer belong to God. If it did, he would only reward the righteous. So that was something I found, I can't remember when, but I thought groovy, and I loved that, so I put that down. Love, happiness, joy, hope, and the ideal. These things cannot be generated from me, God. These are blessings coming from the object. So I thought that was also something I found very inspirational. God is good, therefore life is good for me. If that sounds familiar, that was one of Mr. Hayashi's messages here on the stage at some point. God speaks to us in many different ways. Spiritual revival happens when 3 or more are gathered, not alone. Centering upon true love, everything becomes yours. The more we know ourselves, the better we can help others. Perfect love casts out fear. Be bold, be ambitious, be with God. Be grateful even for our difficulties. Leave behind a legacy of love. True love comes from loving even the hard things. Develop a growth mindset. And the last one I want to leave you with, no wait, two more. Listen to people as if listening to music. Allow them to move you. That was from Auntie Martha Coombs' message. And one I just put down from the message, from the Hundoke we had today. Live for the liberation of God. Okay, thank you very much.
Ju. Okay, I want to just say thank you very much, everybody, for sharing. And I just want to offer all these, the reading we did today and the testimonies to God. So, Heavenly Father, please accept these, the sharing from my brothers and sisters. I pray it can really move our hearts and help us to be better people and to go through this week and even for the coming year with new hope, with renewal hope and inspiration. Thank you so much. With a grateful heart, I offer in all our names, in my name, Marshall D'Souza, Central Blessed Family, Arju.